Good evening. Welcome in to another edition, what seems like a nightly occurrence now, of the PowerMizzou.com podcast, YouTube channel, live show. You call it whatever you want to call it. I'm Gabe DeArmond, going to hang out here with you guys for a little bit over the next hour. We are going to have a couple different people join me because that is how we do it here. We're going to talk to Drew King. We're going to talk to Gerard Hamilton, and we, of course, are going to start the way we always start on Mondays. This is State of the Tigers. We're going to ask you to get in touch with my buddy James Carlton at State Farm Insurance. I was on the radio with James this morning. A lot of you guys have enjoyed him on this show before. We'll have to get him back on. But his day job, he actually does things other than be on the radio and YouTube shows. Get in touch with him at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. CarltonInsurance.net is where you can get him on the internet. You can give him a call at 314-961-4800. James wants to be your insurance agent, as he is mine, as he is Drew King's, and we can both vouch that he is going to take very good care of you. Drew joins us now, fully insured, healthy, and all the doing of our friend James Carlton, I believe.
Shouts to James Carlton.
There you go. Invite you guys to comments, questions, all that in the chat. We will get to them. We're going to start with Drew for about the first 25, 30 minutes. Then we're going to bring in Gerard Hamilton. And Drew, I'm now getting requests for the party poppers.
I came prepared.
It feels like it's like a two-party popper night because they beat Kansas yesterday.
Wow.
We can live with one if you want to conserve to get through the season.
I've got four more here. I mean,
okay. Well, just surprise us at some point. It completely interrupt the show with the party popper. But
okay, sounds good.
This is now your bit. So we appreciate that. And look, it feels like I was talking to somebody earlier today. This feels like the first time to me since the night of the Utah State game that the basketball team is the biggest story in Missouri athletics. Is that fair to say?
I mean, I don't want to compare to other sports. Like, I know football's got the transfer portal going on, but I mean, like, yeah.
But like today, basketball's day. Yesterday, it was the big. There were far more people interested in Missouri beating Kansas than the Music City Bowl, for example.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. We did have somebody compare that to M&Ms and Skittles in the same bowl, which, in hindsight, not a great thing.
Did you test this out or
no? I was just like, he probably doesn't like having chocolate and a fruit snack in the same thing.
But sometimes chocolate and fruit are like chocolate and orange. Very good.
Right. But chocolate and orange Skittles, different combination. So, but no, like I think that absolutely that was a huge win. It deserved all the attention it was getting. Obviously, Tamar Bates ended up being Sunbelt, or not Sunbelt. I used to cover the Sunbelt, but
also would have been Sunbelt Player of the Week based on his performance yesterday, I'm sure.
Correct. But he was the SEC Player of the Week, just after dropping 29 points. So, like that was a big time moment for the athletics department.
Yeah, we're 24, 27 hours, whatever, removed from the end of the game. Is there anything like? I always find the hard thing about doing those post-game live shows is like it just happened and we're just kind of immediately just word vomiting almost and answering questions and stuff like that. So is there anything 24 hours later that you either kind of weren't thinking about at the time or maybe looked back on interviews or anything that sticks out that maybe didn't hit you yesterday?
I think after I got home and kind of went through the Josh Gray numbers and just kind of how big of an impact he had, that really stood out to me. Like 10 rebounds against Kansas, against a Hunter Dickinson who's pretty good on the glass. I don't think I gave him necessarily enough credit, even though I wrote about him afterward. Like that was a huge assignment for him, and he did pretty well there. And then also, like, I felt like we didn't talk enough about Ant Robinson. I know it wasn't like his greatest game of the season, but he had 5 steals, just like Tamar Bates did. And Hunter Dickinson had 7 turnovers in that game, and a lot of them were because Ant was coming up from behind him and poking the ball loose. So, and he was getting
We call that the Des Moines Hodge around here.
the Des Moines Hodge. So, like I thought Ant like continued to look like a real star for the team.
So, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but I'm curious. Like that is. I don't know. I'm going to throw out a number. That's probably the 40th Missouri-Kansas game I've been to, 30th Missouri-Kansas game I've been to, because I forgot they took 10 years off. But probably the 30th Missouri-KU game I've been to. It is your, third?
That's my third.
And the first one that kind of was competitive and meant something, right?
Yeah.
To both teams. So curious, like, as a relative newcomer, I feel like that was kind of your first MUKU experience. I know the one 2 years ago happened. It was over very early. Just big picture walking out of that arena. Like, what are your thoughts about that environment compared to some other things you've seen?
I think I texted you after the game. I was like, I
didn't know if you wanted to repeat this. So I did not.
I said, I don't smoke, but I feel like I need a cigarette. Like that was a lot to go through. But yeah, like I thought it was again like an incredible atmosphere, just like it was 2 years ago. But this time, like they gave the reason a crowd to get into it. So, sorry, I'm still smelling the smoke from the popper earlier.
I didn't know those created actual smoke. Okay.
But no, but like, and even last year at Kansas, like that wasn't a super competitive game. But when Kansas started coming back, like that place got really loud. So, I'm gonna talk to a couple of recruits that were there and getting their opinion on it. But like, I don't think I've been in an arena that loud before for a basketball game ever.
Yeah, and Aiden's asking about how the win affects recruiting. Like Drew said, he's going to talk to someone. Look, it can't be a bad thing. I mean, no kid that was at that game is going to say anything other than very positive things about the atmosphere and the style of play. It's not going to change anybody's mind, on one day. But, I thought it was kind of fitting that Fran Fraschilla was on the call for that because – You'll have to go look this up on YouTube. Just look up Christian Moody Mizzou on YouTube at some point. But the 2006 game, Christian Moody goes to the line in a tie game with about 0.6 of a second left, something like that. All he has to do is make one free throw. And I mean, the place was going nuts. And Fran was on the call that game, and he said, I don't think I've ever been in a louder arena. And he said he took his headset off just so he could kind of get the full effect of it. And I thought it was kind of fitting that he was on the call yesterday because it did show that, look, I think the place is too big. I don't think it's in general, like game to game, the greatest atmosphere in college basketball.
Right.
But when you can get 15,061 people in it, and when it's a game that matters, it can get pretty wild in there.
Yeah. And like they had some games during Dennis Gates' first year where it didn't quite get to 15,000 people, but it had 13 or 12,000.
I mean, they sold a few out.
And it got really loud in some of those games too, like the Mississippi State game where Nick Honor had the game winner in overtime. Like that one comes to mind as a pretty big game. The Arkansas game where they came back from being down 8 in like the last 2 minutes, that one stands out. So, but yeah, like when it's not going well, I mean,
There's a lot of empty seats when it's not going well.
Honor Boateng probably played more minutes than there were people in the arena against Mississippi Valley State. Yeah.
And and the other thing is, it's like, when you go to a PGA Tour event, they say there's a roar and then there's a Tiger roar. Like, the difference between a Brooks Koepka birdie and a Tiger Woods birdie, even if you're not watching it, just by the sound. Like, there's a good Mizzou arena atmosphere, and then there's the KU Mizzou arena atmosphere. It's just different.
Yeah.
A lot more curse words.
A lot more.
And Danny said the student section looked insane for a generation that grew up without the rivalry. What got them so pumped for it? Look, and Drew, you're a lot closer to the age of said
Mhm.
people than I am, certainly. But I've got kids that are close to that age. So my experience is like, if you tell a 20-year-old, we just want you to get really loud and see those people over there, you hate them, like, they can get into that, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
they don't necessarily need to have been there for all 20 years to build up the hate. They, just tell them you hate those people and they'll go to town.
Yeah, like when I was going to Texas, like I didn't really know anything about the Texas rivalry. Like I grew up an Ohio State fan because of my dad.
Right.
So, but like I was gonna show up for the Oklahoma game because like everybody else is gonna go, right? Like it's gonna be packed and it's gonna be a great time. So, I think that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, like I think it's just fun to go to those kinds of games where it means something.
And when it's like the mob mentality at a sporting event, when you are around other people who are starting to go crazy and be loud, like, you start to go crazy and be loud, even if that is not necessarily who you are regularly.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've been to a couple Spurs games where I lost my voice just because of how loud it got in there, myself included. And I'm not somebody who does that a lot.
Shocking. You seem incredibly loud and
Yeah,
gregarious most
boisterous.
of the
Yeah,
time. Boisterous, excellent word. So this is I don't know if you saw this on TV. Danny's asking about Fran's criticism of Gates' timeout. So I watched the last couple minutes on some, I'm sure, illegal YouTube thing this morning. Didn't have everything on there, and it cut out right after this happened. But when Gates called the timeout, he went over to Bill Self, because we didn't see, like, you didn't see this happening
no.
live, did you? I had no idea why. Like,
Well,
I
and
thought
like,
maybe he was calling a timeout to put Danny Stevens in the game. I didn't know.
well, the section right next to us is all fans and everybody's on their feet, so we can't really see the near sideline like that. Like the Mark Mitchell three, I don't think either of us
Right.
saw it. We didn't know who was shooting the ball there.
I watched it on the video board. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I didn't really see what happened there either, and I don't know what Fran said.
Okay, so what happened was Gates calls the timeout and he kind of motions towards Self, like, "Hey, get your guys off the floor." And he walks over to Bill, and I assume what he said was, "Hey, if you guys want to go back to the locker room, so because we know what's about to happen here. If you want to go back to the locker room, it's fine." And it looked like Bill kept his guys on the sideline, like they didn't leave. And Fraschilla was saying on the broadcast, if I'm Bill Self, I'm telling him, "Hey, we'll see you again next year. You don't get to coach two teams." I mean, I don't know. Bill Self didn't seem to have a problem with it. He seemed to think it was a pretty classy move by Dennis Gates and appreciated the gesture, even if he didn't take his guys all the way off the floor.
Yeah, like I don't know, like
Fran loves him some KU, man. He loves him some blue blood.
That's
Like,
the
he
thing.
really does.
But like, yeah, Bill said afterward, like he thought it was a very classy gesture. So I don't think there's any issue or beef there because of the timeout.
Yeah, I think no, I think Self appreciated it. I actually had I had a couple different people text me today after watching Self's press conference and say, "I want to hate him more." That, like, I wanted a reason to hate him watching that, and I didn't hate him watching that. Now, look, Missouri fans are going to hate Bill because he is the Kansas coach, but
Hmm.
he's great in a press conference, man. He was really good yesterday.
Yeah, he's been great the past two times I've seen him too. Like I wish we could talk to him about Missouri every game. I really do, because he'll say some nice things, right? He's like,
Even
hey,
when they're not warranted.
Tamar Bates was the best player on the floor. Like Dennis Gates would never say that, but let's hear Bill Self say it.
Right, right. Ask Dennis Gates if Tamar Bates was the best player on the floor, and he's going to start talking about Marcus Allen.
100%.
But no, I actually did think, though, yesterday was Dennis's most, like, human, honest comments, maybe since he's been here. Like, I thought it was pretty telling that he started out saying, hey, our great players did this video and like our great players have beaten Kansas. And I want these guys to have that memory in 20 years and talking about kind of walking up a couple rows into the stands to just kind of be able to look around and see. Like, I really expected to walk into the press conference and for Dennis to downplay how big that was. And he didn't do that at all. I mean, he said, this is the 5th time in school history we've beaten a number 1 team. This is a really big deal, and I want people to enjoy it. And I appreciated that.
Yeah, like credit to him for also like kind of sticking to the subject too. Like, I don't think he tried to divert any answers, which he can do sometimes. Yeah, like I thought also when he was talking about Josh Gray, right, and just like first team all defense, he brings infectious energy. Like, he gave us some actual genuine feelings and insight about like what Josh Gray did for the team. Yeah, like I thought Dennis Gates had a very good press conference for sure.
All right, so I'm going to handle this one because you have not been at a field or court storming for Mizzou, but where does this rank? So I would rank this as tied for 3rd, and the first 2 are football games. Number 1 was when they beat Nebraska in 2003 for the first. It was the first time they beat Nebraska in 25 years, and the pent up release of emotion in that was pretty incredible. The second one was when they beat Texas A&M in 2013 to clinch the SEC championship bid, and everyone like it wasn't like a crazy people are going to die and get hurt field storming, but it was like everybody got on the field and they played Georgia on My Mind on the video board, and everybody just kind of stood there and sang it, and nobody wanted to leave. It was more of a this is really cool than oh my god people are going to get trampled to death moment.
Yeah.
And so last night was tied for the best. I think Self called it an elite court storming, maybe.
A real court storming.
A real court storming.
Yeah.
Okay. It was tied for the best court storming I've seen at Missouri. And it was tied with one that didn't actually happen in 2012 when Missouri beat KU and the Marcus Denman scored 9 points in 57 seconds game. The first 2 or 3 rows started to come out of the student section in that game, and Kim English and his teammates ran over to the student section and stopped them and told them to get back in the stands because they should expect to beat KU. And that was pretty cool. I liked that one. So this is tied for the best basketball one.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Crump brings up a point. The fine seemed a little aggressive. Was it really 250,000? It wasn't 25,000?
It wasn't 25. It was 250,000 because it was Mizzou's second offense of having people storm the field or the court. So the Kansas State game.
Was the last one? Oh, okay.
Kansas State game counts as the first one.
A whole different year.
Yeah, I know. And this is the second one. And then if it happens a third time or any time after that, it's $500,000.
Okay. So at what point do you think the athletic department draws the line and Laird Veach goes, yo, we got revenue sharing, man. You got to stop this. Like yesterday was cool. But next time, $500,000, it might start to be like, hey, we got buyouts to pay. And stuff.
I was thinking that about the 250,000. Like, that's not chump change. That's what Greg Popovich got for resting all of his starters against the Mavericks on a TNT national game. Like, it's a lot of money, you know. But
to them, it's really not that much money.
I guess.
Like you're talking about, they made like $140 million last year. I mean, that's like I don't know. I can't even do the math, but that's probably like $100 to you and me.
I don't feel great about losing $100.
I mean, I wouldn't want someone else to cost me $100.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Now, to be fair, right? If it's $100 for something I really want, which Mizzou probably wanted a court storm there, like sure, I feel that. Right. Like, but yeah, like as far as down the road, like if they beat Kansas next year in September, are they gonna storm the field? You know, and that's gonna
not in football.
Not in football.
You don't storm the field for beating Kansas.
Okay.
That's not a thing.
Fair enough.
The K-State one, though, it was funny. I remember walking to the press conference. I happened to be walking in the hallway right by Desiree Reed-Francois, and I said, you had told me, that you would pay a fine for storming the field. Are you good with that? And she said something along the lines of absolutely or gladly or whatever. And I tweeted that out, and I don't think she loved me tweeting out her quote about gladly paying the fine. But that's all right. All right, so Jared's got a question about the press conference. Is it annoying when you ask Josh Gray a question, but Dennis stops him and then whispers in his ear what to say? That was kind of weird. Like, I don't really know what he was telling him to say there.
Okay, so this was my read into it, right? When Josh started his answer, because this was the question. I said, what were y'all doing well defensively in the first half that let you get off to a big start? And Josh started off saying, well, we were doing a good job of this. We stuck to our principles. And then Dennis said, hang on, I'm calling timeout. Whispers something in Josh's ear. And then Josh goes, can you repeat the question? So I did. And he goes, I think I did a good job with my assignment. I did a good job of.
So he was telling him to be a little more selfish.
Yeah, give himself a little bit more credit. That was my read into it. I don't know that that's actually what happened, but that was my thoughts on it.
That makes sense. I just didn't notice a huge difference between the two answers. And Jared, appreciate the super chat and appreciate you hanging out. So we got 7-8 minutes here left, Drew. Let's go big picture here.
Yeah.
Do we now talk about the NCAA tournament as an expectation? Like, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on it yesterday, but day to think about it. What do we think?
Yeah, I think for sure it should be the expectation at this point, because this was a game that I don't think anybody was necessarily banking on as a win. And so they're a little bit ahead of schedule right now. I think I projected in my preseason column that I thought that they were going to win Memphis or Illinois. And look, they might still lose to Illinois, but having that Kansas win in your pocket now, you can go forward knowing that you'll probably be 11-2 going into conference play. And that gives you a little bit more cushion, right? From you can make some mistakes in SEC. You can drop a game to Vanderbilt, right, and still survive. So I think that was the biggest thing that game did, is that it gave you some cushion going into the SEC play. And so, yeah, I do think that should be the expectation, is the NCAA tournament.
I want to thank Andrew for paying 1/100,000th of the fine to Power Mizzou. Here's the problem, Andrew. We're not giving that money to Mizzou. So Mizzou still owes the full. They do not owe $249,997.50. They still owe the full amount. We're keeping that money, but we appreciate it. Thank you very much for the super chat. So the way I viewed it at the beginning of the season, I thought you had Memphis, Cal, Kansas, Illinois. I said, if you want to talk about the NCAA tournament, you have to split those. You have to be 2-2. They will now at a minimum be 2-2. I think it certainly is the goal to be. If Missouri beats Illinois, it will then fully be the expectation for, not expect to compete for it. I expect them to get there if they beat Illinois. I'm not quite 100% there yet, and here's why I'm not. So I went through the SEC schedule and the net rankings. Oh my God, this league is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 6 of the top 12 teams in the worst team they play is South Carolina. The net ranking's 98.
Yeah.
I mean, they have nothing worse than a quad 2 game on their schedule after December 30th.
Yeah. That's correct.
And the difference is, in the past, I feel like the SEC had to, look, you knew you probably weren't going to Auburn and winning, right? You knew Alabama was tough. You knew Kentucky was going to be a tough game. But, you also knew, and last year notwithstanding, but you also knew, hey, Georgia comes here. Hey, South Carolina comes here. You knew there were some that you felt pretty good you were going to get. And this isn't a Missouri thing. This isn't I don't know who in this league looks and says, well, we know we're going to get that one.
Yeah,
I mean, like
100%.
Texas is one of the like bottom half of this league right now, bottom third of this league, and I don't think they're bad.
Yeah, like Trey Johnson's pretty good. He's gonna win them some games in SEC. You're absolutely right, because last year I think you could look at a team like Missouri and say, okay, we'll win that one. The year before that, you could say LSU will win that one. Vanderbilt, right? This year, Vanderbilt's not a pushover. LSU is not a pushover. I thought Oklahoma was going to be one of those teams this year, and instead they're ranked 13th in the country right now. So this is a league where, and Dennis Gates agrees with me here, I think that there's going to be 10 teams that get in.
I think there could be more.
There could even be more. You've got 9 teams in the top 25 right now and 4 teams receiving votes. At least 3 of those, or at least 2 of those, aren't going to make it, and they're going to be really good teams. So yeah, like it is going to be an uphill climb. But that being said, you don't necessarily have to come away with a winning record to make it either, because of how well all of the teams have been doing in a non-conference play.
Yeah, August said if Mizzou goes 11-2 non-con and splits the SEC, they're absolutely in. Then if they go 11-2 non-con, I think 7-11 gives them a shot. It probably wouldn't get them in, but that's what Ken Pom has them right now. He has them 11-2 non-con, 7-11 in the league, 18-13 overall. That's probably not quite enough. I think you probably need one more.
But if you go 7-11
and 8-10, I think you're fine.
I think 8-10 will probably get you there. If you go 7-11, I think you probably have some work to do in the conference tournament, right? Like you probably need a winner.
But if you go 12-1, 7-11, and you've got Kansas and Illinois wins, I think you might be all right.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Like if you get to 19 wins in the SEC, you've done something this year. We'll finish you up with this, Drew. Jason says, I think this shows that every game is winnable. So here's the thing, and I was talking to somebody with Missouri before the game yesterday, and I said, I don't think this is an elite Kansas team in terms of talent. Like, they do not have Auburn or Alabama talent to me. If Mizzou Arena is going to be for the Auburn game like it was yesterday, sure, then maybe Missouri can beat Auburn. It's not going to be. The kids are going to be home, and it's not Kansas. Like, that's the toughest game on the schedule to me, regardless. Like, I think Auburn's legitimately the most talented team in the country.
Yeah, I think Janai Broome is the best player in the country, period. So that's going to be a really tough matchup for them.
We know what Alabama is.
We know what
Tennessee is.
Yeah. I will say I'll give Kansas a little bit more credit. Like down the line, Kansas is going to be fine. They're going to be a tournament team. I don't know if they'll be.
Yeah. I just don't think it's because they have elite individual talent.
Yeah, and Bill Self said yesterday, he's like, DeJuan Harris is a really good player. KJ Adams, really good player. They're not necessarily great scorers, though, right? They have the intangibles, but they're not explosive, and they've kind of been waiting on guys like AJ Storr and Zeke Mayo to step up and kind of help with the offensive side of things, and they really haven't yet. I think they'll figure that out eventually, and it'll be a good-looking win in hindsight. But yeah, like I don't think we saw the A1 version of Kansas yesterday.
Well, and my point about every game being winnable is not that Kansas isn't a good team. It's the attitude, the desire, the drive won't be that every game. It just won't be, because the fans won't be what they were yesterday. Like, there is a reason that bad Missouri teams still won that game in Columbia, and then would turn around and lose to Colorado, because that game is different. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think winning that game makes it more likely you beat Auburn, just my opinion. Drew, I know you got to go, man. You got calls to make, so we will let you run. Appreciate you hanging out. We'll bring Gerard in here in just a second. Want to address one comment. Joshua says Dennis has to pump attendance moving forward and make the home environment elite. No, that's up to you guys. Now, what Dennis has to do is win games, right? And he has to give you a reason to show up and to be there. No question. That is his job. It's not Dennis's job to beg you to go. Dennis needs to put a product on the court that makes you want to go. And I think he does a better job pumping attendance than a lot of people do. And I know Eli Drinkwitz does a good job of it too. Tamar Bates said he was on the floor telling fans, "Hey, we need you here like this every single game," and that's cool. But if Missouri wins, you'll go. More people want to see a winning team. I really don't think that's Dennis's job to necessarily sell you on going. And maybe I'm misinterpreting what you were saying. But I think if he just wins games, people are going to show up. So, all right, that was basketball. And again, the first time in a year and a half, basketball's been the top story. Felt like it kind of deserved to take the first 30 minutes before Gerard Hamilton and I fill Missouri's roster out in the transfer portal over the next 30 minutes. So he is here, and I saw a couple of them earlier. I'll go back and get them, but football questions and comments in the chat, throw them in. Gerard, first day of the portal, at least from the Missouri roster perspective, almost nothing happened. I'm not talking about offers from other schools. I'm just talking about outgoing. I thought we might see a few more announcements.
Yeah, maybe what Drink said. I think it was during signing day, or maybe it was just after the last Arkansas game. I can't remember. But basically, he was saying not going to see that many, of the senior guys and some of these players, like how a lot of teams at this time, they'll have a lot of people go. We only seen Mackay, Brayshawn, and Orion Phillips.
Philip Roche.
And Roche. I feel like it's a little different situation, but yeah.
Right, exactly.
So nothing too crazy. And maybe this brotherhood stuff that we've been hearing on repeat. I mean, maybe there's really, not that we thought it was, or I'll speak for myself, not that I thought it wasn't something before, but everybody says there's a brotherhood and all that stuff. But right. I mean, going into the bowl game, yeah, we're not seeing too many people, enter and leave and stuff like that.
Yeah, but here's my only thought though, is first of all, the portal closes before Missouri's bowl game. So if you want to transfer, you've got to make the announcement before the game. And there are guys that have to leave. They've got to get down to 105. There are guys that there's just not room for. So I mean, we are going to see 10 to 15 guys transfer out. I'm sure of it, right? Minimum, because I could probably pick 10 guys that say they've got to go. So I was just a little bit, I would think if you're going to transfer and you have to do it before the bowl game anyway, I would do it day one, man. I would get everything done. And and we didn't ask Drinkwitz this because we didn't talk to him yesterday. I would be interested to know. Last year, he made a big deal of, hey, if somebody wants to go in the transfer portal, we'll still welcome them at the trip on the Cotton Bowl and all that. I'm curious if that was a one-off because, hey, this was a great season and a great game, or can somebody enter the portal and have the option to go be a part of the team at the Music City Bowl? I don't know.
Interesting. I mean, that's a good thought. I think it's telling that it's day one and Missouri's in the position. We're kind of seeing this change the last couple of years where they're not forcing or begging recruits to play. I remember on a Tiger Talk last year, kind of towards the end of the regular season, Drake was talking about just basically, yeah, we'll give these guys offers and such, and there we're looking to get the guys we want. We're not sitting around waiting for everybody, and it feels like this in a sense that it seems like guys don't want to leave. Maybe they don't want to be the first ones to give up those opportunities because maybe right. They can keep my scholarship and we can have something set up and they see something and blah, blah, blah. So in a way that's good. But like you said, if I'm one of these guys and I kind of know, or maybe there's writing on the wall, even if it's just a little bit, how am I going to play? They just got these guys here. You wait until, a little bit later in the month. Some of these other teams play their bowl games whenever, and those guys hop into the portal.
And it's going to fill up.
Yeah, that's your spot wherever that is, in the country that you could have had if you would have went a little early. So kind of got to play, both sides. But I mean, I feel like it's a good sign for Missouri that players aren't just dying to leave.
Yeah, and Michael brings up a good point, and I looked it up while you were talking, and he's right. There's 5 days after the bowl game to enter the portal. So if you play a bowl game that lasts beyond December, that is played after December 28th, you have 5 days. So Missouri players will have New Year's Eve to January 4th to enter the portal. And I hadn't this is how hard it is to follow college football, guys. This is my job, and I didn't know that rule. Like, there's just so many rules and so many things that change every year that I didn't realize that. So that's possible. But again, it doesn't change the idea that if you are a borderline player, if you're a guy who's not playing at Missouri, so you're probably transferring down, right, to a G5 or something like that. If you're doing that, like, I want to get in the portal and get my spot, man. And if it means I don't play, I don't get to take the trip and stand on the sideline at the Music City Bowl, so be it. I want to find a place I'm going to actually play football next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Michael, you make a great point, but kind of like specific to Missouri playing on the 30th, I believe. Like, you don't want to wait until after New Year's or whatever to you're in a dangerous situation if you're doing that. And only a starter who or a key role player or something who's obviously got the eligibility has that option. You know, for someone like maybe a Brayshawn Littlejohn, like it's good that you got out. You haven't really played much since you've been here, so yeah, get it done, get it out the way early. You don't want to be that guy. You know,
it's exactly like the high school kids with 2 signing days. Hey, if you're the number 14 recruit in the country, you can wait till February because everybody's holding your spot. If you're a 3-star from Olathe and you've got kind of mid-level offers, you better take that in December. Or you're going to find yourself playing FCS football next year. You know, and that's great for a lot of people, but that's kind of the point is you got to take the spot when it's there. So we'll start out. Mark is I don't know if this is a question or a statement, but portal 2 safeties, a cornerback, 2 offensive linemen, a receiver, a starting quarterback, a defensive tackle, and 3 linebackers. That would come out to 5, 6, 7, 8, 11. That's pretty close. I feel like 3 linebackers a little high. I feel like it'll probably be 2.
Yeah, more so probably leaning towards 2 just because, I mean, if you're that high up on Jeremiah Beasley and Nick Rodriguez, like one of them at least probably's got to fit into this top 4 organization. And then you got Jacobs still. So
you got Brian Huff and
you
signed a couple kids.
I think you can go a little bit youth as far as your depth, but yeah, you still need a couple linebackers. But everything else that Mark put, I think I agree with.
They could go to 3 offensive linemen with Mimbo leaving. I think they could add 1 more. They don't have to have 3 starters, but.
Well, I was thinking 2 tackles. Obviously, we've talked about this before. Multiple ways they can go. I'm thinking that you bring somebody up there. Maybe you get a couple offensive linemen to move up and do whatever you need to do and move some pieces around. That's why I was thinking 2 linemen.
And I don't think your idea of running back is out of the question. I wouldn't do it, but I think they might. If the right guy is there. So, but other than that, pretty close. I think defensive backfield, obviously, a stress. Tyler brings up a good point. Takes about 48 hours to get processed in the portal. They could have had meetings today and see guys, and that will happen. No question.
Yeah. I'm not saying they won't.
What I'm saying I'm surprised by is it takes 48 hours to go through the paperwork with compliance, but you can tweet, I'm entering the transfer portal at any time. And that at least gets your name on people's radar, right? You can have somebody make you a graphic. With that being said, I appreciate everything everybody's done for me. And I'm going to enter the portal. Doesn't mean you actually have entered the portal yet. But what it tells coaches is, hey, here's a guy I need to do a little research on and see what I think of him. So that when he does go in the portal, I can be the first coach that talks to him if I like him. That's all I'm saying is the social media announcement, not the actual official guys in the portal. So, but yeah, there were 4. And like you said, Philip Roche is a different deal. He wasn't even on the team at the end of the year. And there were a bunch of guys last year. Somebody texted me today, hey, and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to be a dick, but he said, this kid's in the portal from Missouri. I'm like, yeah, he's a walk-on reserve. I didn't know he was on the team till he tweeted it last week, right? And he's like, well, I'm just here bringing you the big scoops, so those kind of things have happened, but we're talking about a little more recognizable stuff. So all right, so this is the question everybody's got, right? Chances of Miller Moss committing before he leaves campus. I will say that's the goal. I mean, that's why you get the first visit. It tells, first of all, it tells Miller Moss, you're our guy. You're the guy we want more than anybody else. Anybody we could bring in, we brought you in day one. If Miller Moss wants to commit, I am very confident Missouri will take him. They're done at quarterback, all that. He's got a visit scheduled to Louisville. He's talked about maybe some others. Missouri's goal is that he does not take that Louisville visit. Somebody asked me on the board, I'm curious what you think, Gerard. Somebody said, like, do they, if he takes the Louisville visit, does that mean Missouri's not getting him?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, obviously, like we just said, it's my phone and my computer. Look, I'm new to this computer.
No, I get the phone call notification on my computer too, and I always have to. But my phone's always on silent. So.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I need to work that out. But anyway,
go ahead. You're too young to have your phone make noise, man.
That's actually very true. I hate when it makes noise, so that's why it kind of startled me. Somebody said Miller Moss is calling. That's actually funny. No, if he takes his Louisville visit, I think that's fine. I mean, to me, I think if he takes more than that, because is that the next visit after Missouri? I think it's fine to take. Friday. Yeah, so I think him being he has 1 year left eligibility. Taking 2 visits, I think is fine. You really want to know what you're doing with your last year. Obviously, he wants to go to the league and stuff like that. So that makes sense that, I had this visit, I had this one. Now, if you get to past Louisville, that I feel like that's a little bit more. You're still really trying to see what's out there for you, what your options are and stuff like that. So, and Louisville, that's a decent team. So I can also see why, you want to take that visit and maybe find that connection or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I don't think him taking the Louisville visit necessarily means Missouri wouldn't get him, because a lot of these guys do like say, hey, I don't just want to fall in love on the first visit and go there. Like, I need something to compare it to. Mm-hmm. But I would say, obviously the chances go down a little bit if he takes it doesn't mean they can't get him. But if let's say Missouri right now has a 50% chance to get him. If he takes that trip, I'd say it goes down to like 40, 45.
Well, do you think does Missouri get an edge? I guess I have not really asked you this. Does Missouri get an edge for being the first visit, or is that just more of a timeliness that they, that they scheduled it first? Like, how does that work to you?
So in my experience with high school kids, you usually want to be the last visit because they're very impressionable. They're going to take the visits anyway. They might commit to every single school they see. So you want to be the last impression they have. With transfers, you want to be the first, because these transfers they're not taking the visits to like go hang out and meet the Golden Girls at the bar. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure it would be a fine bonus, but they're not coming in and hanging out on the town with the current players. They're coming in, sitting down with their position coach, their coordinator, watching film, looking at the playbook, asking football questions, and then asking, okay, like, we got to work out the finances. That's what this is. It's a transactional deal. So, like, these guys have all been through recruiting. Most of them have no desire to go do this 4 or 5 times, right? They just, and the thing is, most of the kids that are good enough to play in the SEC, like, they go into the portal with no more than about 3 or 4 schools on their list. Okay. Like, they know where they're going to look. And so a lot of this has been done, especially with agents. Like, Miller Moss is not going to be surprised by anything that happens at Missouri. This has all been worked out ahead of time. This is mostly, do you like us? Do we like you? Is there anything that surprises you here? Like Drinkwitz has called it speed dating, right? It's okay, cool. You're going to be here for a day. Let's figure it out. Do you like us, or do you have to go on another date?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. For the guys, I was looking at the 24/7 Sports transfer portal tracker thing. No 5 stars in there as far as the rankings of their transfer rating, not their high school rankings, but a lot of 4 stars. I think there's 30 of them. And so for those top 30, yeah, well, it's probably a little bit more even when you go into 3 stars. But basically, for those top 30 guys, you got your handful of schools. You kind of already know about because it's the big schools calling you. It's you're not getting UTEP.
Right. Right.
But you know what these schools are, you know what they're offering, you know what the depth chart, you know a lot of this stuff. So like you said, it's kind of just, when I get here, do I actually like the campus? Do I like the coaches? Do I think what they're telling me over the phone is what is happening in real life. Because I'm sure there's a lot of for a lot of kids, whether it's high school or transfers that are not as highly coveted, we got spots in the depth chart and blah blah blah. And there's a little, tongue in cheek with some stuff like that. But so they're trying to match up of like, okay, I really think I come here, on the depth chart, I think I'll actually be able to play and all that jazz. So yeah.
Anthony's asking, is Moss the only QB target? As of now, yes, in that he's the first one here. If he commits, they're done. They are certainly talking to other quarterbacks. I don't know who they are right now. I also would say this is day one. There are other guys that, like, if you read some of the national stories, if you talk to coaches, like, guys, when we find out about kids going in the portal publicly, like, they know. These coaches know, all right, this kid, 80% chance he's going in the portal. May not happen day one. We need to be ready when it happens. All these people talk. All the communication goes on. I'm not saying anyone's tampering. I'm just saying everyone's tampering. So they know, who's going to be in the portal. We don't know those kids. And look, it is my policy. I'm not going to start talking about quarterbacks Missouri's looking at that aren't in the portal. Like, because they may never go in the portal. And every kid we mention, hey, Missouri's reached out to this kid, you guys become convinced, well, all right, we got to put him on the depth chart, see where he fits. He's coming here. How much do we got to pay him? I'm not going to do that with a kid that hasn't even declared he's in the portal yet. So we're waiting until have I heard a couple names? Absolutely. We'll see if those guys end up in the portal or not. Like Connor Wegman, I don't know if Missouri's talking to him. I haven't gotten any impression yet that they are. Right now, of the guys in the portal, it seems to be mostly Miller Moss. I know there's been some talk about like Thomas Castellanos setting up a visit. I'm just going to tell you guys, I'd be really surprised if that's accurate. I mean, that's down the line. That is not a plan A, B, or C for Missouri. I'm pretty confident saying that. Connor wants to know, I think grabbing a tight end would be an underrated move. Who's tight end 3? What do you think about that?
Actually, after this question, I want to kind of segue into remember the question I asked you earlier today? Kind of, I told you I needed.
Oh, yeah. I
kind of want to bring that up and see what people think about it. But grabbing a tight end, it's I'm going to say they don't. It would, I guess it'd be an underrated. It depends who you get. And if you're getting a tight end, it needs to be, I think, equal to Brett Norfleet or better. Mm-hmm. Like, don't just get a guy to get a guy, because Whit Hafer is huge. He more than can. If you want him to just block, sure. Or
they got Jude James.
Jude James. I know they like how athletic he is. He just undersized.
They signed the kid from Oklahoma, Dakota Terrell.
Yes, like what, 6'7", 225 or something like that. Huge. So I don't think you need to just be getting it for depth. See, this is the thing about being a good team now. You don't have to just offer guys just because you need to fill spots. You'll have them filled by quality players that you can build up and stuff like that. But
and here's the other thing to me about tight ends, Gerard. What have they ever done with the tight end in this offense that tells you they need to go add another one? Like, yes. Brett Norfleet's the only guy that was targeted more than about 6 times this year.
Yes. Yeah. You do not want to spend a scholarship spot or whatever the case may be on someone who's just going to be playing. Like when Jordan Harris was in the game.
I mean, Jordan Harris was throwing the ball enough to be like an eligible tackle on some pass plays. That was basically his role.
Yeah. And which is not great, because when it's a run play when he's out there. Mm-hmm. It's likely a run play. But to the scenario I pointed out that I was just mentioning, is going to be in the column tomorrow. So Gabe, the specific scenario is Eli Drinkwitz comes to you, says you're the GM for one specific position, whatever position you think, whether it's a best player available situation or a need basis, you get to pick it. Most of the resources for their portal offseason, whatever, is going to go towards this position, which means
you took quarterback off the table.
Obviously, yeah. They'll do something well with quarterback, but after that, all the rest of the resources go into the position you pick, and they'll fill in the rest of the team with whatever scraps they got left. So if you basically bust on your position or pick, you can kind of tank the season. So I asked you what was your position, and go ahead and tell people what you were thinking. And then if you have one that maybe you could have thought about, what was that one?
I said offensive tackle, and then you made me pick between left and right tackle. I didn't know I had to pick.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I
I
forgot to put
said
that.
I said left.
Yes, I made it very detailed in the
Yeah.
column that you've got it because it's
Then I said left tackle, and you're like, "Do you want him to be right-handed or left-handed?" I'm like, "Come on, man."
no. I said it's definitely left tackle unless you have a left-handed quarterback. But the reason I said it's too easy to say offensive line, secondary,
Right.
offense tackle. So be specific. But is there another position for another reason?
I mean, I think the second most important one is probably safety, just because I just don't know what they have there. Now, am I committing major resources to safety over any other position? Probably not. Um, so I might, but that's probably where I look at now. Now, if you tell me like, hey, you can pick any player in the country, what are you spending it on? You know what? Even though I'm not sure they need it, then I'm spending it on an elite pass rusher. I'm going out and getting the best pass rusher in the portal. But for this team, to me, it's got to be left tackle. I don't think there's another answer because, like, I don't know for sure if Missouri has either starting tackle on its roster right now,
I
and
don't
that's
think
not
so.
great.
It's terrible considered, especially when you're trying to get in a quarterback and stuff. Like, just think about how many things you can't do if you don't got the offensive line. I won't tell you guys my answer because I'll be in the column, but I'll tell you what made me think. So when I asked you the question, I had initially wrote defensive end. I don't think there's a DE1 on this roster, and they don't necessarily need it. It's more of a best player available situation. If I get the keys to say, hey, use your resources on getting another pass rusher, a pretty good one or a highly rated one, sure, do again. They don't need it, but that I feel like that helps with the secondary and stuff like that. You can get a pass rusher to speed things up, that can help other places on defense. Again, don't have a DE1. Jakai Lang, no offense to him, third or second on the team in sacks with 3. 2 of them came against Buffalo and UMass, and he played 134 snaps. Like,
So here's my counter to that. And Joshua brings it up. I think that's what they think Darius Smith is going to be. Like, I think they brought him in last year. Obviously, he got hurt. I know he's coming off a knee injury. But, like, when I look at defensive end, you got Darius Smith, Zion Young, Eddie Kelly, Jakai Lang. You've got to play Williams Nwaneri a good amount next year. You're going to lose him. Jaylen Brown. Like, I think if you bring in I think if you go out tomorrow and you bring in an elite pass rusher transfer, then I think what you've just told 2 guys on your depth chart is, hey, you got about 18 days left. You probably ought to get in the portal.
I hear you. My retort to that would be, look at South Carolina. They had 5-star Dylan Stewart, who turned out to be pretty good, second best defensive pass rusher on their team. They had him, and they still got Kyle Kennard from Georgia Tech, who led the SEC in sacks. So I get the feelings and all, but if you're saying like, hey, Gerard, you can pick a position, and we're going to be able to probably I can't be thinking about people's feelings if I can think of this guy right here can help me get the wins. We'll be able to replace these feelings with other people. Again, not saying it's a need. It's a very made up game, so please don't take it too serious. But also with Darius Smith, it's kind of hard because they really liked him in fall camp, but we didn't get to see him play. Obviously, that's a major injury, and we talked about this last year, kind of in the same situation. We always assume that the next year is just going to get better, like
Right.
every single player automatically better, and that doesn't always happen. I hope it happens for the same. I hope they do incredibly great, go perfect, go to the title game. But
Right.
that being realistic, that doesn't always happen with everybody. So I'm just saying you can't say, well, we've got this, and that, and there's a lot of unproven production, and then you have a chance to maybe get an elite rusher or whatever, and you skip on.
Yeah, a couple of like specific personnel questions. Michael's asking about the brothers from Arkansas. I wrote a story about them. Talked to their dad today. It's Tevis and TJ Metcalf. TJ was a safety that played a lot. Tevis was a true freshman corner, played mostly on special teams. Missouri's recruiting them both. Talked to their dad today. He said they had heard from 15 or 20 schools already. So there's going to be a lot of competition. The in Missouri has here is that Jacob Peeler coached their cousin, DK Metcalf. Dad did speak highly of Missouri, said we like Missouri. I think they're starting to line up visits. I would expect Missouri probably get a look from those guys. But I don't know who else they're in competition with. And Sam is asking about the offensive tackle from Alabama. Heard we may be in talks. Gerard, is there some other offensive lineman from Alabama outside of Miles McVay that he might be talking about that I'm missing?
Caden Proctor for the 500th. No, I'm just playing.
He's not back in the portal, is he?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just playing.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me. So, Sam, if you're talking about Miles McVay, we posted yesterday, and I posted again today, and I understand, guys, a lot of stuff's happening. You can't see everything. I get it. It is our information at this point that Missouri's really not pursuing Miles McVay. Now if you're talking about somebody else that I've missed, a lot of guys in the portal. Okay. And that doesn't mean Missouri will never pursue Miles McVay. That doesn't mean in 3 weeks things don't look different. As of right now, though, they've got their sights set elsewhere at offensive tackle. I really don't. I don't expect Miles McVay to be a fit here. All right. How badly do they need a corner?
I'll put it like this. Since fall camp, Drink, and throughout the season, Drink has talked about the depth at this position lacking and at times not being where he wanted it to be. And if we're talking about that from the 2024 fall camp and we're going into 2025, let you know kind of where he thinks about the position, specifically about Toriano Pride. I mean, I guess if he took a step, but at this moment right now, no.
I also don't think it's just Pride and
it's not.
And Norwood that are the issue. It's they only played 3 last year. Like Shamar McNeil barely got on the field. Marcus Clark disappeared entirely. They had 3 guys that they played, and they basically spent the second half of the season going, okay, you go, you didn't do very good. You go back. Okay, he didn't do very good. You go back in.
And so especially with a position like cornerback, receivers, those position players who talk a lot and they get their confidence like that, being swapped in and out, knowing I have a bad day or I'm going against one of the best receivers or passing groups, in the league, and I may get benched. That doesn't help you either. So that on top of not being able to consistently rely on your safeties at times, the secondary in general needs a little bit of retooling.
And we've got a couple other names on our message board. Mike Roach, our Texas analyst, wrote a story about Jalen Braxton, who's an Arkansas corner who Missouri's trying to set up a visit with. I've mentioned on our board Jaleel Hurley, who is an Alabama corner, redshirt freshman. Missouri's trying to set up a visit there. So those are some of the candidates. Somebody earlier asked about linebackers. We've got a couple of them on the visit list on our message board. Expected, I believe, starting tomorrow. I'm going to completely mispronounce his name. Makai, Gbayor. Bayer, I don't know. But he is a Nebraska linebacker. He's coming on a visit this week. Our Florida State site reported that West Virginia transfer Josiah Trotter is probably taking a visit to Missouri. So there's a couple names there. So that's, guys, we're gonna update you on this is our full focus. I mean, Gerard's gonna probably have a few bowl game practices and things like that, and then get into previews. But this is our big focus for the next week or so. So Gerard, let's finish up with an actual football question. Tad Danner wants to know what grade you give Corey Batoon for the season.
Last week for the report card, I gave him a B-. Just considering when you think about you lose 5 NFL players to the draft, that's a lot of talent. I think when did he come in right before spring ball or something like that? Like it was.
Yeah, I want to say February-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. So it comes in right before spring ball and trying to get his stuff in. You lose that talent, and then the injuries they had throughout the season, and this was still a top 30 defense, all considered. I think he did all right. But I can also see why someone would give him lower than a B- because UMass, Murray State, and Buffalo, when you look at games like that, they kind of cloud some of these stats and make it, they balloon the stats up. So there was plenty of time throughout the year where I was saying, I can't really tell what this defense is because the stats say one thing, but the eye test is saying something else.
I think I would have gone B minus is fair. I might have gone straight B. I think he did fine. I think there were some talent issues. Like he can't get a new cornerback. There's nothing you can do about that. So I think overall he did a pretty decent job for year one. Not elite, but a pretty good job. He loses half a letter grade for the performance in College Station. Like that day alone costs you, and then the South Carolina deal wasn't ideal as well.
Also, think about how much the defense was on the field because the offense struggled for most of the year and couldn't put up points.
I mean, the defense was the better side of the ball most of this season.
Exactly. So think about that. They're the better side with less talent, having to play more because the offensive line, for whatever reason, can't be consistent and kind of do what they did last year. We didn't really start seeing that until the South Carolina game, really. So
yeah, and in the South Carolina game, I think clouds our judgment a little bit. That was obviously hurt, and like Carpe Donnelly says, it's why cornerback's so important in the portal. No question, man. They got to go out, and I think probably just one because like Drayden Norwood largely was good enough this year, right?
He was all right, but I've said it multiple times.
I don't know if he's cornerback one, but
there you go. I don't know about cornerback one per se. But I mean, I think he was all right. When you look at his stats, you notice that like it seems like he gave up a lot. He really has a couple of big plays, miscommunication plays that resulted in deep bombs or something, and that's why his stats look inflated as far as yards allowed and stuff like that. But I think he did all right.
Yeah. All right, guys. So it's day one of 20 in the portal, and then add 5 more after the bowl game. So a lot's going to happen. We're going to keep you up to date on as much of it as we can. Appreciate you hanging out here with us. Talk a little basketball, a little football recruiting, all that. We didn't even mention the Music City Bowl. That's about how I feel about it. It's fine.
Well, I know you're excited for this game. Gabe told me.
Let's just wrap up with that.
Coming down. Gabe told me he's coming down to Nashville.
100% not. It's way too far away. But like what I wrote today is it's a ho-hum bowl game to wrap up what was kind of a ho-hum season for both these teams. Like it's not bad. It's fine. I'm not angry about it. It just is there.
Yeah. In my column, I'm just like, I like Nashville. I like the food.
Right.
You're going to see.
You go get yourself some hot chicken. That's a W.
That's literally all I'm thinking about. Like that, and I can get home early. You guys are going to see a great offensive explosion from Iowa and their third string quarterback without their top running back.
The two best offensive players in this game aren't playing.
Yes, without their top 3 to 5 running back in this upcoming draft. Like it's going to be great. So.
All right, guys. So thanks for hanging out. We appreciate you. Do want to remind you on the way out the door to get in touch with my guy, James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. CarltonInsurance.net. If you live in Missouri or Illinois, he can take care of you. He's going to give you the best deal that he possibly can. I can vouch it's going to be a competitive deal. He saved me a whole bunch of money about 6 months ago. Give him a call, 314-961-4800, CarltonInsurance.net. You tell him you heard about him on Power Mizzou. He gives you a quote. He's going to donate to Mizzou's NIL efforts. Those are going to come in handy. Every $25 Eli Drinkwitz can get over the next 3 weeks, he's going to put to his roster. So give James a call. Get that taken care of. We appreciate it, guys. Talk to you next time.